So we're very fortunate to have today His Grace Satchitananda Prabhu, who is a disciple of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami. He is presently council member of Iskcon Niagara Falls. So Prabhu associated with Iskcon for over 30 years. He is twice initiated by His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami. He has performed various services in Iskcon, Pujari Seva, Sunday feast cooking, teaching, harmonium to Sunday school kids. Uh, he does a lot of kirtan, bhajan, lectures, and seminars on Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Gaudiya Vaishnav teachings. So he has been invited to speak on spiritual subject matters, conducting many preaching tours, delivering various seminars and lectures at different centers, ISKCON centers all around the world. To name a few, he did this in India, Canada, US, Russia, Sweden,
not completed.
Belgium, France, Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, and Mexico. So he's dedicated to the service of Srila Prabhupada, and he's sharing Srila Prabhupada's teachings and glories. So we're very fortunate to have Prabhu with us. So today we're going to be hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, 15th chapter of the 7th canto. So if that's okay, Prabhu, maybe you can start when you're ready.
So when it is verse number 57, that's what I was told. Is that right?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. All glories to Prabhupada.
Sure.
Thank you. All glories to Radha Madan Mohanji, Gaur Nitai and Jagannath Baldev, Subhadra Devi. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय राधा मदन मोहन, राधा मदन मोहन राधे। जय राधा मदन मोहन, राधा मदन मोहन राधे। जय गौरानिताय, जय गौरानिताय, जय गौरानिताय, जय गौरानिताय। जय जगन्नाथ, जय जगन्नाथ, जय बलदेव, जय सुभद्रा। जय जगन्नाथ, जय जगन्नाथ, जय बलदेव, जय सुभद्रा। जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी, जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी, नयन पथगामी भवतु मे, नयन पथगामी भवतु मे। जय प्रभुपाद, जय श्रीला प्रभुपाद, जय प्रभुपाद, जय श्रीला प्रभुपाद, जय प्रभुपाद, जय श्रीला प्रभुपाद। पतित पावन श्रीला प्रभुपाद, 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 प्रभुपाद। गुरुदेव, 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 जय जय गुरुदेव, जय जय गुरुदेव, जय जय गुरुदेव। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद जी की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी ठाकुर जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस श्री गौर कृष्णदास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रीला जगन्नाथ दास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ, श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट दास रघुनाथ षड गोस्वामी प्रभुओं की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। श्री मथुरा द्वारका धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। जय श्री श्री गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, समावेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। इस्कॉन मॉन्ट्रियल भक्त वृंद की जय। देयर लॉर्डशिप श्री श्री राधा मदन मोहन जी, पतित पावन निताय गौर सुंदर, जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा देवी की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So first of all, I want to thank Iskcon Montreal for inviting me to speak on this subject, sublime subject of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today's verse that Iskcon Montreal has been following in chronological order is from the 7th canto, chapter number 15 and verse number 57. So we will first read the verse, and then we will read the word-to-word meaning, and then the translation, and the purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. So today's verse is, Adavante jananam sada bahirayanta paravaram jnanam gyayam vachovachyam tamo jyotistva ayam swayam. Adavante jananam sada bahirantaha paravaram jnanam agyayam vacho vachyam tamo jyotistvayam swayam. Adavante jananam sada bahirantaha paravaram jnanam gyayam vacho vachyam tamo jyotistvam ayam swayam. Word-to-word translation by Srila Prabhupada. His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. Ado, in the beginning. Ante, at the end. Janana, of all living entities. Sat, always existing. Bahihi, externally. Antaha, internally. Para, transcendental. Avaram, material. Jnanam, knowledge. Gyayam, the objective. Vachaha, expression. Vachayam, the ultimate object. Tamaha, darkness. Jyotihi, light. Tu, indeed. Ayam, this one, the Supreme Lord, Swayam, himself. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. He who exists internally and externally at the beginning and end of everything and of all living beings as that which is enjoyable and as the enjoyer of everything, superior and inferior, is the supreme truth. He always exists as knowledge and the object of knowledge, and expression and the object of understanding, as darkness and as light. Thus he, the Supreme Lord, is everything. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. Here the Vedic aphorism, Sarvam Khalau Idam Brahma, is explained. It is also explained in the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, aham evasam evagre. The Supreme Lord existed in the beginning. He exists after the creation and maintains everything. And after destruction, everything merges in him. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Prakritim yanti mam ekam. Thus, the Supreme Lord is actually everything. In the conditioned state, we are bewildered in our understanding, but in the perfect stage of liberation, we can understand that Krishna is the cause of everything. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govindaha Sarva Karanam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita, chapter number 5, verse number 1. This is the perfection of knowledge. So we will translate, you read the translation one more time. He who exists internally and externally, at the beginning and end of everything, and of all living beings, as that which is enjoyable, and as the enjoyer of everything, superior and inferior, is the supreme truth. He always exists as knowledge and the object of knowledge, as expression and the object of understanding, as darkness and as light. Thus he, the Supreme Lord, is everything. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shrinvanta Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Hridiyantasta Bhadrani Vidunoti Surutsatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Shrinvanta Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Hridiyantasta Bhadrani Vidunoti Surutsatam Nigamakalpataro Galitam Phalam Shukhamukhadravamrutam Samyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka Aradhyo Bhagwan Vraje Aradhyo Bhagwan Vraje Shatanayas Taddham Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasna Vrajuvadvargena Taya Kalpita Shrimat Bhagavatam Puranayamalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Mataidam Nayatra Agraha Paraha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Grantraj Shrimat Bhagavatam Ki Jai Grantraj Shrimat Bhagavatam Ki Jai. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya Acharya Guruvar Ki Jai. So my humble obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnavas at Iskcon Montreal Temple, to Radha Madan Mohanji, Nitai Gaur Sundar, Jagannath Baldev, Subhadra Devi. My hundreds and thousands of obeisances is to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, by whose mercy we are gathered here today. And May the words that emanate from my mouth be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, the assembled Vaishnavas, and all the Acharyas in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line. If there are any imperfections, I beg for forgiveness right away in the beginning, and it would be because of my inabilities. Hare Krishna. So, generally, before actually going into the verse, I generally like to summarize the chapter so far. That way, some devotees who may have not joined in the last session or some sessions, they can get some idea. I was told that there are a lot of devotees on Facebook. So my obeisances to all those devotees who have joined live on Facebook as well. Hare Krishna. So in the seventh canto is entitled Instructions for the Human Beings. And this basically, the seventh canto, chapter 15, is entitled Instructions for Human Beings. And just a brief summary, Naradji, in the previous chapter, he mentions the importance of the Brahmins. And in this chapter, he tells us the different gradations of Brahmins, the differences, the types of Brahmins. And the brahmacharis, that the Brahmins are classified in the following ways as brahmacharis who study the Vedas and they teach the Vedas, the Grihastha Brahmins who can be karmakandis or fruitive workers for the betterment of social conditions. There are certain Brahmins in the Grihastha ashram whose forte is social benefit of the society. Some Brahmins in the Grihastha ashram, they're engaged in performing the Shraddha ceremonies for the departed souls, serving the society thus. And they also, the Grihastha Brahmins, one of their duties is to give charity to the persons who are in the higher ashram of sannyas. So, Srila Prabhupada mentions that every householder should be very careful, because even though if one is a householder or a grihastha, a householder may try to conquer the senses, but he still becomes a victim to the association of relatives and falls down. Thus, a grihastha, that is a very, very big point that Srila Prabhupada makes. In one of the incidents in the pastimes of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, one morning when he was giving Katha, Hari Katha, he had some Grihastha disciples, Brahmacharis and Sannyas disciples as well. And in the midst of the Katha, one of the Grihastha ashram's wife came in, caught her husband by the sleeve, and literally in front of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and all the assembled Vaishnavas, pulled him out of the Hari Katha of the assembly and took him home. Later on, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, in private, in front of a couple of disciples, he cried and he said that Maya just came and took away my disciple right in front of my eyes and I could not do anything. He was lamenting. So this is a very true point. Sometimes when we take to Krishna consciousness, there are many impediments. And the more we take to Krishna consciousness, the more we are tested. And the more we are tested, basically that's her job. Maya Devi is in the service of Sri Krishna to filter out those souls who are very sincere. Those who want to stay Bahirmukha or averse from Sri Krishna, Maya Devi and this material world is the perfect place. But those who want to escape this jail or Durga or the fort of this material world, then they are tested again and again. Krishna consciousness leading to Krishna Prem is not so easy, especially one who has fallen into this material world. And those who are very sincere will indeed get the benediction of personalities like Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas, so that we can cross over this ocean of knee science. Grihasthas also, a Grihastha must become a Vanaprastha. In this chapter, it was described that eventually, to elevate one's Krishna consciousness, one should become a Vanaprastha or sannyasi. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself says that Chaturvanyam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. This is my system, he says. Chaturvanyam, these four ashrams and these four varnas. Chaturvanyam, these four varnas, the Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Brahmacharya ashram, Grihastha ashram, the Vanaprastha ashram, and Sannyas ashram. Chaturvanyam Maya Srishtam. They have been made by me. Guna Karma Vibhagasa, according to one's qualities and by their affinity, by their karma. It is not by janma. This is unfortunate that nowadays, or even in the past, the degradation of the Vanaprastha system or the Varnashram system has taken a toll in India, and the Smarta or the Orthodox Brahmins, they claim that they are the Brahmins by birth, and therefore, no matter whether they have those credentials or those qualities or not, they still consider themselves Brahmins, their children, their grandchildren, and so on and so forth. But Krishna never used the word Janma. So those who read the scripture properly and present it as it is and follow them as it is, then they will never mislead the general public who never is much educated in the Vedic system. So it is due to sense gratification, these Orthodox or these Smarta Brahmins, for their belly and for sense gratification, they manipulate the Shastra. But eventually, this is an ashram. And ashram means austerity. Shrama means voluntary austerity. Ashram. And voluntary austerities are taken up so that we can cultivate Krishna consciousness. Haribol. And elevate ourselves to the point that we are completely purified and achieve the goal of this human form of life by engaging ourselves 100% in the service of Radha Krishna, in the service of Guru and Gauranga. So, for that elevation, Krishna has made this varnashram system. So, from Brahmacharya, one must elevate themselves. In the previous days, when the children used to go to the Gurukul under a bona fide Acharya or a Guru, the Guru would decide. Okay, he would see the significant signs of his students or the Gurukulis and say, you take sannyas directly. That is called Naistiki. From Naistiki Brahmacharya directly to sannyas. So they skip the Grihastha and the Vanaprastha ashram because Gurudev decides that they are qualified and they won't fall down if they take directly. So it's like, for example, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's Gurudev, was a Naistiki Brahmachari. Directly he took from Brahmacharya, he took to sannyas. Such personalities are very rare. Not to say that the Grihastha ashram is less effective. As a matter of fact, it is said that most of our acharyas, they all come from the Grihastha ashram. And it's a perfect place for practicing Krishna consciousness, especially if one has a Krishna conscious wife and children, then the strength doubles, triples, quadruples in Krishna consciousness. And it also gives a chance when you get married to cultivate Krishna consciousness in the family, so that they also their uh, their pathway back to Godhead would become very easy. So ultimately, it is always service to Sri Krishna, whether it is in the Brahmacharya ashram, as a Grihastha ashram, as a Vanaprastha. Eventually, the Grihastha should, to conquer the senses, they should leave after 50, 60 years old and become Vanaprastha or sannyasi, um, and live in a secluded place and be satisfied with just food that has been gotten by begging, madhukari. You maybe Vaishnavas may have heard of this word madhukari. Madhu means a bumblebee, and kari means to go from one flower to another flower, extracting honey. So, in one sense, when a person who is completely bereft of possessions goes from one household to another household, for two reasons. First of all, one reason is because they are completely detached and they have to accept alms by begging. And that is why generally if you see sannyasis, the difference in, if you look at the nature of their clothing, they have an upper garment that is tied around their neck, and it is called an uttariya. That uttariya basically is meant to spread it like a little joli, or like a little sack, when they're standing in front of a household and doing madhukari, going from one house to another. Somebody will give them fruit, somebody will give them flour, somebody will give them cooked chapatis, somebody will give them, other, like other types of grains, and then they will take it back. If it's a brahmachari will take it back to the ashram and cook it for the rest of the ashram inhabitants, including Gurudev. That's the job. Just not on initiation day, that we see generally that when the person gets initiated, they stand all over the temple and they have their upper cloth and they're asking for alms. This is a everyday nitya karma, because that brings great humility and detachment. That was the whole culture of the Vanaprastha system. Unfortunately, it is not available today. But that is why the best system that Srila Prabhupada has given is chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That is the biggest sacrifice. No matter what ashram one is, we can become perfect. Further, in this chapter, it has been said that living in a secluded place and being satisfied with whatever food is gotten by begging from door to door, he must chant the mantras, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, or glorifying Sri Krishna. In this way, they will benefit the person who is giving charity. So that is the twofold purpose. One, to imbibe humility in themselves and detachment to material things, and second is to to give mercy by receiving alms to the one who gives alms, or one who gives charity. So it's a win-win situation. That is what our Vanaprastha system is. That is what Krishna consciousness is. It is never one-sided. It is always beneficial to all, because that is the system of Mahaprabhu. That is the system of the Kripa. After taking sannyas from Vanaprastha ashram, uh, if one, Prabhupada mentions, returns to Grihastha life, he is called a Vatansi. Vatansi in Sanskrit, if you translate that simply into English, means one who eats his own vomit. So that is a person who is a Vatansi. So one has to be very careful. Taking sannyas, it's not, changing ashram, one should think 100 times and be dedicated once we are. Even taking initiation, we should be very dedicated to our vows, to the commitment that we make. It is like, in a very simple material example, if I may give, it's like a wedding. When we take the vows of wedding, we take the vows to protect each other, and we take the vows that we will live our lives, and obviously, needless to say, that we will not cheat on each other, or not, be unfaithful. So, like that, once we take these ashrams, one should be very careful. Otherwise, it really gives a bad name, not only to the society that one is in, but also to the to the acharyas, to the parampara. Obviously, the parampara is very pure. Um, they can never be contaminated. But still, society at large, they generally like to look at the spots, but not the beauty of the moon. So we have to be very extra careful when we present ourselves. Sannyasis should really behave like sannyasis. They should not indulge. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that bhalo na peribe, bhalo na khaibe. They should not wear opulent clothes and they should not eat very opulent. So these are the instructions that were given, and Mahaprabhu followed them strictly as a sannyasi. So, and Prabhupada mentions that in this chapter also, that the best is Shraddha. So many Brahmins, Grihastha Brahmins, they specialize in Karmakand, they specialize in Shraddha ceremonies, etc. But Prabhupada said, the best for Vaishnavas, the best Shraddha is not to eat meat and distribute Bhagavad Prasadam, Krishna Prasadam. That is the best Shraddha. So even if our forefathers are trapped somewhere in the Pitrulokas or in the hellish planets, when we distribute on their Punya Tithi or on their anniversaries every year of their passing away, it is called Punya Tithi. We should always, distribute Krishna Prasadam to the Brahmins, to the Vaishnavas, to the poor, and that is considered the best Shraddha. Uh, Vanaprasthas, they have to commit to penances, austerities. Sannyasis, they have to commit to not only penances and austerities, but they have a responsibility as teachers of Bhakti Yoga. They have to teach the science of Krishna consciousness. So this is very important. Like we see in Srila Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra, Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. He has delivered even the toughest of the toughest, the Mayavads, the voidists, the impersonalists, the Western culture, full of sense gratification. Personality like Srila Prabhupada taking the sannyas ashram has delivered them. That is the duty of sannyasis. In Srila Prabhupada Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhu Pranam, there is also a mention of Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha. In Bhakti Siddhanta Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Sri Varsha Bhanvi Devi Daitaya Kripabde Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namah. I offer my obeisances to that personality who is preaching the science of Krishna consciousness, Krishna Sambandha, the science of relationship with Sri Krishna. And then further it says, Namaste Gauravani, Shri Murte Dina Tarine, Namaste Gauravani. I offer my obeisances to the personified personality, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is Gauravani, is personification of the words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that is the duty of sannyasis. Even like yesterday, we had a wonderful celebration online, of course, Srila Prabhupada's Tirobhav Tithi, his disappearance. And I shared with the devotees that even the gopis sing the glories of such personalities like Srila Prabhupada, our Gaudiya Acharyas, who are so powerful. In the 9th verse of the Gopi Geet, where it says, Bhuvi Grinanti Je Bhurida Jana. In the verse, Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavi Biriditam Kalma Shapaham Shravana Mangalam Srimadatatam Bhuvi Grinanti Je Bhurida Jana. Indeed, they are the topmost beneficiaries, most munificent donors. They are giving the highest in charity, which is Krishna consciousness, by going all over the world and giving Krishna consciousness. They are indeed the highest benefactors of mankind. So that is the job of sannyasis. And the best process for advancing in devotional service is to abide by the orders of the spiritual master. So like this, this is what has been mentioned. And one may actually be successful in spiritual life if one follows the instructions of the spiritual master. In today's verse, it is mentioned that even though we are situated in the material body, one is fully aware. I'm sorry, it was the previous verse. I just wanted to recap that. Even though situated in the material body, one is fully aware of the paths known as there's the Pitrayan and Devayan, and who thus opens his eyes in terms of Vedic knowledge. is never bewildered in the material world. And in today's verse, it is said that he who exists internally and externally, at the beginning and at the end of everything and of all living beings, uh, that is that is that is the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that is what all these ashrams and even Brahmanical qualities are 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 dovetailed ultimately to cultivate Krishna consciousness. Um, Krishna says in the like Prabhupada has mentioned, Sarvam Khalav Idam Brahma. This has been explained that Sarvam means all. Khalav Idam Brahma means everything is actually Krishna's energies. It is an extension of Krishna. Everything is spiritual. It is explained, not like the Mayavadis who think that I am he or I am that Brahman, but everything is spiritual. With the material of creation, it all happens from Sri Krishna. It is also mentioned, Prabhupada mentioned that he mentions the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam from the second canto, 9th chapter, verse number 33, wherein Srila Prabhupada quotes in this purport, Aham eva asam eva agre, that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna says in the beginning to Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma was given this information during the time of creation through the Kam Gayatri mantra. If we see the cover page of Brahma Samhita, we see that Krishna is playing the flute and Lord Brahma is sitting in meditation on the lotus flower. So after emanating from Garbhodakshai Vishnu from his navel, he sits on the lotus flower when he's instructed to commit to meditation. Tapa, tapa, tapa. And when he sits in meditation, this particular Brahma is very fortunate to directly get initiated by Sri Krishna in Golok Vrindavan. He plays his flute and gives him spiritual and material knowledge. As it is explained in the very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, that Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. The spiritual knowledge was granted in the heart of Lord Brahma, the Adi Kavi. Adi Kavi means the first poet or the first Vaishnava poet, because Lord Brahma, he, after getting the knowledge, material and spiritual, he compiled the Brahma Samhita. Samhita means a collection of verses. So there is therefore all Vaishnavas are generally good Vaishnavas, top class Vaishnavas are all poets. Brahmaji, Naradji, Vyasdev, they all Madhvacharya, Madhvendra Puripad, Ishwar Puripad, Mahaprabhu himself, the six Goswamis, they're all great poets. Vishwanath Chakradipad, Narottam Das Thakur, Baldev Vidya Bhushan ji. If we look at their writings, they are so prolific. Jaydev Goswami, Vidyadas, Chandipati, Sridhar Swami, and then in the recent last 5 generations, we see Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ji, great poet, wonderful. He has written great books like Gitavali, Sharanagati, Kalyan Kalpataru, all in the form of bhajans. Today we sing so many of his artis from those bhajans. Jai Radha Madhav is from Gitavali, and we also sing the Sandhya Arti, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, we sing the Bhoga Arti. So all these Narottam Das Thakur's, they are all great kavis. And also Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Vad has his own compositions. And our Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, he was dubbed Kaviraj by the Gaudiya Math, by the because he was so prolific in his writings that even Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada said, whatever he writes, please publish. So, like this, they are all Kavi. So the Adi Kavi is Lord Brahma, and he actually was given this Brahma Gayatri and Kam Gayatri and was initiated by Lord Krishna. And he said, but he actually instructed him with 4 verses, which is actually the Samam Bonam of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is known as the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam. And one of the 4 verses that Prabhupada quotes here is Aham eva asam eva agre. Krishna says that to Lord Brahma, that I am the personality of Godhead, certainly only me that who existed, and there was nobody before creation. Na anyat, there was nothing else. Yat sat, the cause and effect. Asat, the cause, and sat, the effect. Parama paschat aham yat etat cha ya avaseta saha asmi aham. At the end, it is I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that always remains. Avisyetaha. Avisyeta means I remain after everything is annihilated. And asmi, I am, aham, that Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here in this verse, Krishna is mentioning, Naradji is mentioning that it is Krishna who exists internally and externally. In this verse, in this 57th verse, even Mother Kunti, in the Kunti Stava, Canto number 1, chapter 8, she says, Namasya Purushamadhyam Ishwara Prakrite Param Alaksham Sarva Bhutanam Antar Bahir Avastitam. I offer my obeisances to you, the Supreme Lord, Namasya Purushamadhyam. Ishwara Prakrite Param, you are that Supreme Lord that is beyond the clutches of Maya. Ishwara Prakrite Param, Alaksham Sarva Bhutanam, you are not visible to everyone, although you exist internally and externally, which is what this verse has started with. He who exists internally and externally, and is the beginning and the end of everything. So, like this, continuing into the verse, it is said that Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yantim Mamikam. Mamikam. Srila Prabhupada quotes this verse from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Kalpa Shayate Punyastani Kalpadu Vijyasamiham. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, every material manifestation enters into my nature. Everything enters into me. And at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I again procreate, I create. So this is the constant process. The time is limited, so I cannot go into the actual nuances of the creation. But in a nutshell, after the the continuous cycles of the Kali Yuga, and then again the Satya Yuga, and the Treta and the Dwapar, like these four cycles comprise about 40 lakh years or 4 million years, and then approximately, I'm just rounding those numbers. When you multiply them by 2000, and then you multiply them by 2000, that is equivalent to 1 day of Lord Brahma. And then Brahma lives, our Brahma, the Chaturmukhi Brahma, has 360 days in 1 year of his year, and then he lives 100 years. So that goes to several trillion years, I think about 3 trillion years. After that, there is annihilation, complete annihilation of the material creation, which comprises 25% of Krishna's creation. 75% is spiritual, which is never destroyed. And the 25% is destroyed and recreated, destroyed and recreated. That is what this verse is also encapsulating, this message. Through the agency of Mahavishnu, when he inhales, all the material worlds are annihilated, and when he exhales, all the material worlds are recreated, and many Brahmas are recreated through the agency of Garbhodaksai Vishnu, and then Sirodaksai Vishnu expansions, etc. So basically, it's a constant, non-stop. And then when all the jivas, when the annihilation takes place, all the jivas, they enter into Mahavishnu's stomach. And then when when the material world is recreated, they are put back into the material world based on their past karma, back into those different species of life. So at the end of the day, Krishna was always there at the beginning and at the end. And as that which is enjoyable, as the enjoyer of everything, superior, inferior, and that is the supreme truth. If Prabhupada quotes one more verse in this purport, is Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karan Karanam. He is the cause of all causes, and he is the supreme controller. We are all the jivas, no matter how small we are, we are also Ishwaras, but we are mini Ishwaras, very atomic in nature. Ishwar, basically, if we translate that from Sanskrit to English, it means controller. So we are mini controllers, or atomic, minuscule, infinitesimal controllers. Ishwara Parama Krishna. There are different gradations of controllers. The demigods also control the different the different what do you call their duties in the administration of Krishna's creation. Somebody is controlling the rain like Indra, somebody is controlling the water like Varun Dev, somebody is controlling the moonlight, the moon, the Chandra Dev, somebody is controlling the sun, the Surya Dev, etc. There are so many. Somebody is the giver of wisdom, Ma Saraswati. Somebody is given that portfolio to remove obstacles in the material world, like Ganesh Ji, so etc. So they all have different powers, they have different controls, but Ishvara Parama Krishna, he is the topmost controller. Anadiradir Govinda, there is nobody that existed before him. He is the Adi, the foremost of all, and Anadi, and nobody existed before him. Sarva Karana Karanam, he is the cause of all causes. Just like in the Vedanta Sutra, the first two words, Janmadiyasya, and the first two words of Srimad Bhagavatam, Janmadiyasya of the first word, everything is created through you, O Krishna. Janam, Adi means the sustenance, meaning etc. Adi means etc. The other two processes. Adi means the sustenance after the creation and the annihilation. So, Janmadiyasa, it all happens from you, O Sri Krishna. So, and he always exists as knowledge and the object of knowledge. This is also very important. This has been mentioned in this verse as an expression of understanding and darkness and as light. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a beautiful verse, Vasudeva Paraveda, Vasudeva Param Jnanam, Vasudeva Param Tapa, Vasudeva Paramakha, Vasudeva Paro Dharmo, Vasudeva Paragatihi. So whatever we do, it has to culminate into Krishna consciousness. Vasudeva Paraveda, if you're studying the Vedas, and if our conclusion of the Vedas and our consciousness is not elevated to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, then the reading of those Vedas is useless. Therefore, we are Bhakti Vedantists. That is why Srila Prabhupada was entitled Bhakti Vedanta. There are many Vedantists who study the Vedas. They are Mayavadis, Brahmavadis, and their conclusion is at the end of the day, I am God. So there it is useless, their studying of Vedas. So Vasudeva Paraveda, knowing Vasudeva, knowing Sri Krishna is the conclusion of the Veda. Vasudeva Paramakaha, the conclusion of doing any kind of sacrifices is Hare Krishna. Is Krishna, developing Krishna consciousness, the lotus feet of Krishna. Any kinds of yajna, whether it is sacrifice that they do as a home, as a fire sacrifice, or the Sankirtan yajna, which is considered the best in this age of Kali. Brahmaji mentions in the 11th canto that, what is that verse? Krishna Varnam Tisha Krishnam Sango Pango Parshadam Sankirtane Yagyer Prayer Sumedati Yajanti Sumedashaha. Those who are most intelligent in this age of Kali Yuga, the sacrifices that they do is Sankirtan Yagya. Sankirtan Sumedasha. Sumeda means most intelligent. And Sankirtan means Samyak Kirtan iti Sankirtan. There are many meanings of Sankirtan. Again, I think I'm short of time. But Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada explains Sankirtan means full Kirtan. Sankirtan also means congregational chanting, of course, because in the age of Kali Yuga, we cannot do bhajan, nirjana bhajan alone. We need the association of Vaishnavas so that we are strengthened. Because we cannot do, if we do, even Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada says that Tumi Kishara Vaishnava, what kind of a Vaishnava are you if you are doing Nirjan Bhajan? That is simply to just attract some pratishtha. And Nirjan Bhajan is not really very helpful to the society at large, because when we are actually doing bhajan along with other people, we are encouraging each other and we are helping each other with our Krishna consciousness. So congregational chanting is Sankirtan, but Sankirtan has also deeper meaning as far as our Gaudiya Vaishnavas are concerned. Samyak Kirtan is Sankirtan. Full Kirtan means glorifying. Fullness is Sri Radha Krishna. The glorification of Radha Krishna, and especially the Mahamantra encompasses Radha Krishna when we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hara means, obviously we all know that it is Srimati Radharani, but actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has mentioned that it is all his internal potencies. Nam Nam Akari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. All his internal potencies, all the internal potencies include all the Vrajvasis, include all the Gopis, include all the Manjaris. Our Acharyas are all Manjaris and Gopis in the service of Sri Radha in their Nitya Lila Pravishta. When they have gone back to Golok Vrindavan, they are so that when we chant the word Hara, we automatically are praying to attract their attention, to attract their mercy. That includes Srila Prabhupada, all our Acharyas, and all the way to Srimati Radharani. That is Hara, and Krishna is Sri Krishna, the all attractive. The one who attracts not only all the jivas, the atheists in the material world, through the agency of Maya, because even the atheist, he doesn't know that he's being attracted by Krishna, by Krishna's energy, Maya, in the form of money, material, name, fame, money, etc. And the devotees also attracted to Sri Krishna, including the Vrajvasis who are attracted the super excellent attraction of the highest pinnacle is in the Madhuri Ras of the Vrajvasis who are attracted to Sri Krishna. Therefore, he is Krishna, the all attractive. So when we chant, that is what Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada explains the meaning of Sankirtan, meaning when we constantly chant the full glories of Radha and Krishna, which Mahaprabhu also mentions in the first verse of Sri Shishtastakam Ananda Ambudi Vurdhanam Pratipada Purna Amrita Swadanam. That Purna Amrit means the full nectar, and that full nectar is when there is Radha and Krishna, Radha Shyam Sundar, Radha Madan Mohanji. So therefore, this is the samam bonam of the best, wherever whatever ashram one is situated in, but this is the best Sankirtan of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra one can do, and all our duties are there encapsulated. It is extremely difficult to do all those activities as a Brahmin that were there in the past of the Varnasam system, but it is not possible to do it now. But that is why the Mahamantra is recommended. So thank you very much. Thus, this is the Samam Bonam. Thus, He, the Supreme Lord, is everything. Sri Krishna is everything. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. If anybody has any questions or any comments or any corrections, please feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself and do the needful. Thank you very much once more for engaging me in the service of Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hari Bol.
Thank you so much.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Prabhuji. What is your name?
Pran Goranga.
Yes, Pran Goranga Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you. You mentioned about Varnashram a little bit.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, so you said it may be difficult to observe Madhukari now.
Yes.
So can you tell us how this the devotees how they observe Vanaprastha ashram now?
Yes. So see, the best thing is, from what I understand, that Srila Prabhupada, I've read many books before coming to Iskcon from my childhood, different philosophers and everything, but I've never come across the words as Srila Prabhupada had mentioned, the word Krishna consciousness. So these are the two key words, Krishna consciousness. In every purport and every line, Srila Prabhupada somewhere or the other always mentions this. And our life is all about Krishna consciousness. So even if we are staying at home, we can maintain Vanaprastha by strictly controlling our senses when the time comes. And we can observe that in a very mental fashion, in a Krishna conscious fashion. Okay, then if our life permits, then we can always join a temple and be clad with the permission of Guru, become a Vanaprastha by taking the uniform of a Vanaprastha, which is more or less similar to that of a Brahmacharya, by cladding the saffron and engaging more and more into preaching activities and preparing for sannyas. That would be the most ideal way. That is possible through the medium of our movement, Iskcon. But it has to be followed with that consciousness. Because unfortunately, sometimes people get carried away that, not to say all of them, there is a few elements that have been, and we know through our practical experiences that sometimes they consider Vanaprastha and Sannyas ashram as a five-star ashram to enjoy sense gratification, that, to accept obeisances, to accept gratification, nice kinds of food items, and so many other things that, like I will get disciples and I will get followers. But if we are in the proper Krishna consciousness, then we have to remember Mahaprabhu. Na janam, na dhanam, na sundarim kavitava, na jagdisha kamaye, mama janmani janmani ishware, bhavatat bhaktir ahaitu tvai. So our consciousness should be that I do not want followers. No janam. Like, the consciousness was like Prabhupada. Prabhupada had so many disciples. I think over 10,000 disciples he initiated. But whenever the moment came and Prabhupada mentioned, he used to say that my Guru Maharaj is so kind, I am an old man. He has sent me all of you to assist me. Otherwise, what can an old man do? So that was his Krishna consciousness, that my Guru Maharaj, those disciples are not mine. They are actually Guru Maharaj who has sent for my assistance. And whenever Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, when somebody bowed down to him, including his own disciples, he would utter very softly, Dasosmi, I am your servant. This is what the great Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada used to say, even when his own disciples bowed down to him. So that is the proper mood and the consciousness. And that can be practiced whether at home or whether one really practically goes into that route of taking to Vanaprastha by changing the uniform. And then one should be very careful not to go back and not to get attracted to the opposite sex. It is very difficult because sometimes, in the course of preaching, we get many females, especially if you're a male, for example, many females who may come close to us. They might ask questions, and then we fall prey to the senses, because senses are very difficult to control. Krishna has mentioned, or Arjuna has mentioned, that prasabham manaha. It really, in the Bhagavad Gita, these two words have been used. It's extremely difficult to control the senses. It is more difficult than to control the wind, Arjun said. So we have to be extra careful. Our sadhana should be of immaculate condition. That way we do not fall prey if we are going to really change our uniform to Vanaprastha and then to sannyas, so that we can bring all glories to this Krishna conscious movement. Otherwise, best to stay as a grihastha wearing white, but mentally, with our consciousness, practice ashram of varnashram and sannyas. It can be done. It can be done. So I hope I was able to throw light on your question, Prabhuji.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. It's very clear.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Thank you. All glory to Prabhupada. If anybody else has any questions, comments, or corrections?
I have one other one.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, you mentioned about Mahaprabhu's instruction to Raghunath Das, I think.
Yes.
But we can be, we may get the impression that Mahaprabhu, from at least from the writings of Krishnadas Kaviraj, he would take a lot of different prasad. With in many instances, he will eat very generously. Can you say something about this, or?
Sure. We can say, actually, Mahaprabhu practiced what he preached. But sometimes, because the devotees would not eat, that's why Mahaprabhu ate those opulent items to please the devotees. But internally, when there was nobody around him, he was very austere and he practiced it. And sometimes he even rejected the opulent prasadam for himself. But Nityanand Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, who are grihasthas, they would not eat if Mahaprabhu would not eat. And that is one of the reasons why he would. Actually, he would take just to please the devotees. So that is a higher consciousness. But if we think that we can do the same thing, we are not doing it to please the devotees, we are doing it to please our belly. Sometimes, we have this thing, that prasadam, oh, it is Krishna prasadam, which should be very opulent and this and that. Yes, of course. But, some point, we have to control. Pratyahara, Rupa Goswami also says that, if you remember, we should not make any excessive endeavor for even eating, nice things. Because then, at the end of the day, it affects our Krishna consciousness, our health, etc. All that is Krishna prasadam. Krishna prasadam can be even one tulsi leaf. It has got the same potency. It doesn't have to be a whole huge plate or a bowl of pasta and 5 pieces of cake. If you know what I'm saying. So again, it is at the end of the day, it is Krishna consciousness. It comes back to these two same words. What is our consciousness? Do I want to control my senses? If I control my senses, then I will be advancing in Krishna consciousness. I will not only be helping myself, but I will be also helping others. And that is the best service to Srila Prabhupada and to Radha Krishna. So we have to consider that Krishna consciousness, what is in the best interest of pleasing Krishna. So yes, of course, on certain festivals, like, yesterday was Srila Prabhupada's Tirobhav. Most of the temples were closed and we could not perform, but usually we have opulent festivals on Prabhupada's appearance, disappearance, on Janmashtami, on Gaur Purnima, and such on such festivals on Govardhan, Puja Day and all. So that is perfectly acceptable. But to become gluttonous and to kind of, demand, certain people I know, not to take any names or anything, but like when they are coming and when we invite them at home, like if they are very have a big name in the society, then they have a big list that follows. They say, oh, this person only eats this and this and this, and you should make it in organic flour and this and that. That is like and that person is if he's a sannyasi or in a vanaprastha, then that's a lot of baggage which they should be detached from. That is what Mahaprabhu says. That is what we have to strictly follow as much for our own. It is like an athlete. If an athlete wants to make it to the Olympics, then the more he practices, the more rigorous exercises he does, the more he will excel. So we have to decide what we want. Do we want to live an opulent life, and at the end, when the time comes, do we want to risk heart stroke, blood pressure, diabetes, and all other kinds of ailments? And when at that time we won't be able to remain a Krishna, then we are playing Russian roulette. We're taking a chance. So all these things that our acharyas and Mahaprabhu has given is for the benefit of, at the end of the day, to control our senses. And the best way to control is, of course, Krishna Prasadam, but of course in proper measurement, not like in a gluttonous way, and chanting the holy name. So I hope, you know, and I say this for myself too. I love prasadam. Don't get me wrong, and I also do get indulged sometimes in opulent prasadam. But then it is not right at the end of the day to control our senses. It doesn't mean that if you eat 5 kilos of prasadam and if you take 1 grain of prasadam, the potency is not. It's still the same potency, no doubt. Even 1 grain of prasadam has the same potency as one full plate of prasadam. Hare Krishna. That's
Haribol.
Haribol.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Prabhu.
Thank you. Anybody else has any other questions, comments, corrections?
Yeah, Prabhu, I just like to ask one thing: how one can control the desire to be recognized by others?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, what is your good name?
Samir.
Samir Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So your question again, if I've understood it. Okay. Can you repeat your question?
Yes, how one can control the desire to get some recognition.
Very nice question. So I think I'm getting a feedback. Is there a mic?
We can mute ourselves.
Yes. Would you do that, please? Until that. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. So that answer is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Again, if we all study the Sistastangam very nicely, what does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say in verse number 3? Trinadapi sunichena taro iva saishnunam amanina manidina kirtanya sadahari. And we are not able to do this. We are not humbler than a blade of grass. We are not as tolerant as a tree. And we are not able to give respects to all, and we are expecting respect for ourselves. Why is that? The answer is in the 4th verse. Because we are attracted to dhanam, to wealth. We are attracted to followers, janam. We are attracted to the opposite sex. We are attracted to praise, kavita va jagdish kamaye. So that is why we have to pray to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, to our acharyas constantly. The answer is also in the 5th verse, as Mahaprabhu prays, Ei Nanda Tanuja Kim Karo. I am your eternal servant, O son of Nanda Maharaj. Ai Nanda Tanuja. That is with that internal crying. Ai Nanda Tanuja, with that humility, with that desperation. Ai Nanda Tanuja Kim Karo. I am your eternal servant. Patitavam Vishame Bhavam Buddho. I have fallen in this material world of all these kinds of material desires of name, fame, money, etc. How do I stay away from it? Please, kripaya tava pada pankaj stita dulim sadrisham vichintaya. Please keep me at your lotus feet, as considering it, let me as a little atom at your lotus feet. When the desire arises, and it has to be constant, it has to be apratihata. Apratihata means a constant flowing desire, then definitely we will be guarded. Supposing if somebody in the temple, we get some seva, like we can perform some nice pujari seva, or let's say decorating the deity, or cooking very nicely Sunday feast, or or just for the deities, or nice kirtan if we are capable of doing, or we are able to give nice lectures or lead nicely, then we have to be even more on the guard. The main thing, the question that you have asked is constantly pray for protection. Otherwise, we will fall prey. Right away, our fall down will begin when we think we have done it. It is actually no. Actually, it is by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada we are able to do whatever we are. We have no credit. We have no credit. We should never take any credit for ourselves. That that awareness, that consciousness, will keep us away from such thoughts of pratishtha or expecting pratishtha. And it is very difficult. It is not so easy. But when we have to cultivate, it is called sushrushuha. We have to cultivate that by constantly begging at the lotus feet of Prabhupada. Every time when somebody praises us, the process is that we should always say, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev. Right away. Give it, don't keep it with us. That is what our system is. It is called the Aroha and the Avroha Pantha. Aroha means the ascending process. Just like anybody who has studied music, they will say that the ascending, when we say sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa, from lower notes to the higher notes. So similarly, when somebody gives us the credit, it should go into ascending order. We give it to our Guru, we give it to Srila Prabhupada. Immediately right there, if anybody bows down to us, immediately we say, Jai Srila Prabhupada. We offer that obeisances to Prabhupada. If anybody says that you've done wonderful seva, Jai Srila Prabhupada, you immediately, internally, mentally offer it to Srila Prabhupada, to the acharyas. Then it will reach the lotus feet of Radha Krishna. And then the avaroha, the opposite will happen. What is that? Just like the descending the notes. Sa ni dha pa ma ga re sa. From the higher notes to the lower notes, the kripa will descend from the lotus feet of Radha Krishna through the acharyas in the parampara, through Srila Prabhupada, and it will come to us. So the ascending, any credit that anybody gives to us, it should go in ascending order straight to the lotus feet of Radha Krishna through the medium of parampara, through the medium of the Vaishnavas. All glories to them. It is to them. And then pratishtha can never touch us. And that has to be apratiyata, constant, not just once or twice, constantly. Because somewhere or the other, somebody is going to always appreciate our seva. Wherever, whatever we do, immediately, that very second, that very moment, we offer it to Srila Prabhupada. We offer it to our senior Vaishnavas who have guided us. We offer it to the parampara. So that is the best way to protect ourselves. That is my understanding, Prabhuji. I hope that satisfies your query. Go ahead, you can unmute yourself.
Again.
Yes, Samir Prabhu.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us such a wonderful lecture today and enlightening us. And we definitely, we are looking forward to have you again in the near future.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for inviting me. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, thank you.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Haribol. So I take your leave. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you. Haribol.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.